So welcome to another MCrider Q&A session. If you're not familiar with these videos, I've been releasing these on Sunday for the last few weeks, and it gives me a chance to answer some questions or respond to some feedback that I get from you guys on Facebook and YouTube. So if you've got a question on any MCrider video, leave a question in the comments, and maybe I'll get to your question in a future video. This first one comes in from Tiffany Myers. Tiffany says, yes, I have a question. I'm heavy on the rear brake and it's causing me to glaze the pads. I understand CBT, so clutch, brake, and throttle, but I can't seem to find that sweet spot between the friction zone and the throttle so that I can let up on the rear brake a little bit. What am I doing wrong, or do I need to use the clutch and throttle so that the brake is less beaten? I've scrolled through and watched a lot of videos. Haven't been able to find anything on this particular topic. So what I would recommend, you're using right now, you're really heavy on the brake because you don't have that clutch in the friction zone. What I would recommend, and I know Tiffany, I've met her a couple of times, and Tiffany has a lot of people that are competitive riders that she's friends with, and her husband, I believe, as well. So what I would recommend is don't worry about speed through U-turns right now. Don't even worry about the degree of the U-turn, but practice on just using the clutch, very minimal throttle. I'm talking 1,500 or less, and just ride in a straight line. Maybe make some wide U-turns. Don't touch that rear brake at all. Just ride around the parking lot using the clutch in the friction zone, very little throttle. You may not even have to use any throttle at all to get used to the technique. And then once you can ride the motorcycle slowly, just using the clutch and throttle, then you can introduce just light pressure on that rear brake to help balance things out. What you don't want to do is use the rear brake to control your speed. You want to use the clutch and the throttle to control the speed. And then once you get those two in, then you can start to use the rear brake to help balance the motorcycle and provide a little bit of resistance to help keep the motorcycle in balance. So this next question is common. I hear this all the time, and I don't understand the disconnect on this, but we'll address it once more. This is from Mr. BCRC. You can see this comment below. Kind of a long comment, so we'll just address the highlights of it. He says here in the second paragraph that a rider only needs to take a course once because everything in that course should be usable on the street. That's the value of the course, and because you'll use it on the street, you will maintain that skill. And I fully disagree. Riders need to continue practicing and training because some things that you learn on a parking lot are simply not safe to do on the street. You mentioned emergency braking. You know, how often can you slam the brakes on, an truly emergency brake out on the street? It's much safer on a parking lot. That way, if you drop the bike, you're out of the way of traffic. And let's talk about the fact of practice. Would you tell an NFL player, well, you practiced once, so you don't need to practice anymore. You're good for the rest of your career. You'll just use everything you learned in this practice for every game in the future. It'd be ridiculous. A coach would get kicked out of the NFL if they taught that, and a riding instructor that told you, hey, just take this one course and you're good for the rest of your life should be kicked out of the motorcycle training field as well. So this next question comes in from David Burkness. I guess it's more of a comment than a question. It's similar to that last one that we looked at. David says, in relation to that can you ride like this video that I posted, a motor officer riding through the weaves out on a skills course. He says, while impressive, those are parking lot skills, not road skills. Well, what you learn in a parking lot is directly applicable to what you use on the street. Watch this rider go through these cones again. He's turning his head. He's looking where he wants the motorcycle to go. He's counterweighting. He's leaning the motorcycle. All of those things that you use on the street, he's practicing on a safer environment on a parking lot so that he can use those out on the street. I would say the things that you use on the street are valuable, but there's a lot that you can learn on a parking lot that is simply more dangerous, or there's not space or time to do it out on the street. So this question comes in from Cameron Francis. This is in relation to the motorcycle throttle mistakes every new rider makes. He asks, what gloves are you wearing in the throttle demonstration? Those are Lee Park Sumo gloves. I highly recommend them. They are a little bit expensive, but I've got 2 pair that I've been wearing for several years now. I kind of interchange back and forth. When one gets sweaty, I let them sit for a little bit so they can dry out. But I've been using these for several years. They're the best gloves that I've used. You can go to mcrider.com/sumo, and I'll forward you directly to the page where you can order a pair for yourself. So this question comes in from Dean Bush. This was in relation to the how to trail brake on your motorcycle without crashing video. Dean asks, what do you do when you enter a corner or curve, and after you enter it, you realize you're going to cross the double yellow line? Do you lean more and apply more front brake? Do you apply more front brake, or do you just lean more? So this is the benefit of using trail braking, because if I come into a corner and I realize that that corner is a little bit sharper than I realized, I've already got pressure on that front brake, right? So the front of the motorcycle, the forks are already compressed. I've got pressure on that front tire providing maximum traction to that tire. If I need to turn just a little bit sharper, I can apply just a little bit more front brake to that. And that's going to, it's going to tighten the dimensions of the motorcycle up. It'll compress the fork a little more, make the motorcycle turn a little bit sharper. But slowing it down is going to help the motorcycle turn as well. So that's the advantage, the biggest advantage to me out on the street for trail braking is that you can apply a little bit more front brake. You're continuing to lean, but by applying just a little more front brake, you're going to allow the motorcycle to slow down and turn a little bit sharper. So your first instinct on this, continue to lean. You can even lean a little bit more if you've got, space and time to do so, but apply just a little bit more front brake. You don't want to grab that front brake, apply a little bit more front brake. It's going to tighten your curve up. As usual, I want to thank everybody who's become a member this past week. If you're not a member, you can go to mcrider.com/member and you can sign up. You'll get access to the field guide with training exercises to work on any open parking lot, and you'll get access to the forums where we hang out and talk about motorcycles. So for the people who signed up in the last week, we got Carl Bumpers, Glenn Orr, Dave Diarman, William Ernst, Bruce Zide, John Scarless, Jack Patterson, Adrian Ham, Mark Stonebreaker, Joshua Satterley, Keith Blaha, probably butchered that, Celia Ruiz, Patrick Howard, Kevin Thompson. So thank you everybody who has become members this week. If you have any issues, you can reach out to me at support@mcrider.com. Be glad to help you get on the forums if you got any issues with that. Thank you for joining. If you haven't joined, that's how you can help support this channel and give me the ability to continue to release videos like this on a weekly basis. So we'll see you next week with another Q&A video. Till then, this is Kevin with MC Rider. We'll see you on the road.